Hello and welcome to the Tennis Menus Daily Roland Garros show. Val here with you. And remember, Crunching the Numbers is the latest data trends run by our great friend Shane Liyanage, who is going to join us on the show today. Only $39.90 on the tennismenu.com. That's US dollars, of course. But a big show lined up for you today. The quarterfinals, well, they are done and dusted. We're down to our last four in the men's and the women's. And it was Novak Djokovic overcoming Pablo Carreno Busta this time out, although he did take a medical timeout during this match, and we'll find out why during the show today with Marc giving his expert analysis. Tsitsipas looking very, very good as well, overcoming his loss to Andre Rublev in Hamburg last week. We'll find out how he did that and also the latest data trends from the ladies' side of the draw, what Sofia Kenin's been able to do, and also Petra Kvitova moving through to the final four. But before we do any of that, let's introduce the other three men that are going to make today's show what it is. And Marc is the best high-performance coach in the business. Marc, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Val. Love the intros as always. And what an incredible night of tennis. A couple of really big kind of injuries that were playing part in both the men's and the women's side of the draw. We'll go through that a little bit as we go along. But I'm not going to take too much time today because the great man has joined us once again. So I'm just going to let you continue the introductions and go from there. The man who has just taken the tennis scene by storm. So let's keep it going.
And we're still going to whet the appetite for that introduction because we still have to introduce Joel Frucci. Joel, how are you, our multilingual legend?
Yeah, I'm going all right, boys. No languages today, I'm sorry. But yeah, I'm going all right. I can't wait to crack into the tennis.
It's going to be very good. And, well, the man that's going to make up this foursome, #legendary Liyanage, Shane Liyanage from Data Driven Sports. How are you, mate? Great to have you back on the show.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, great to be back. I'm always nervous with the three of you here. You've got beaming grins. It's nervous times for me.
Oh, even more beaming. No, but it is great to have you on the show, mate. And unfortunately, on Jabeur falling to Danielle Collins the other night, but you worked absolute wonders this tournament, and we know you deny that a lot of it isn't you, but it is. We know it is. So, but we'll move on to the men's draw, and we'll start this off fairly quickly because Pablo Carreno Busta again played Novak Djokovic last night. After what happened at the US Open with the lineswoman default, Carreno Busta won the first set and was on the verge of doing so at the US Open. If we do remember that encounter, he got the first set this time again. And Djokovic took a medical timeout when he was behind in this match and all of a sudden came out and won the next three. So he got through 4-6, 6-2, 6-3, 6-4. I do have some thoughts on that. But Marc, you noticed something about Novak Djokovic last night that in his warm-up, he was actually looking fairly uncomfortable.
Yeah, it was actually interesting to watch as you get up at 2, 3 in the morning every morning, just what I do these days. But I was able to get up and see what was happening. And pre-match, he was actually doing his warm-up and was really, really struggling. He was getting apparently a lot of heaviness through his right arm, and it was coming from his neck. So he had a bit of treatment. His trainer was on court. He was getting treatment on the court in the warm-up pre-match, and really struggled to even lift his arm. And in the first set, I think it was a 40% first serves in at that stage for the whole first set. Could not buy a first serve, couldn't look up. His neck couldn't go up at all. So he was really struggling to stay up with the serve and was pulling down a lot of the time and really struggled in that first set, had a bit of treatment and came back out and obviously started to serve a little bit better. I ended up serving at 56% for the match, but I think as time went on, it started to loosen up a little bit, started to warm up. But yeah, it was an incredible match to watch. Carreno Busta was in some really good form early, hitting the ball really clean, really well. And even the last three sets really challenged Novak at times. And even the second set, it was 3-love Novak. It went to 3-all. And then it went 6-3 Novak. It was really incredible how the ebbs and flows of that match went. But I know we touch on it all the time, and I know Val, Novak's greatest fan, but that guy he's got a second gear, that another gear that just when he needs something, he just rises above. And it's the one thing that him, Nadal, Federer have probably possessed in their game for the last 15 years, that they've just got another level to go to. And I just felt it, this morning watching that match, that every time Carreno Busta looked like he was back in it, Novak just stepped it up just a tad and just kept him out of that match. So he was getting frustrated, Novak, and he was yelling at the box and he was going bananas, but he's just got this level of tennis that he's just hard to play against. And, it was a good win in the end.
Yeah, it definitely was. And looking at Pablo Carreno, Busta, what he said after the match on Djokovic's medical timeout, it didn't surprise me that he asked for the MTO. It's a good thing. It's a sign that he's losing and that I was playing well, because he always does that. It's something he's been doing for years. When he's down, he asks for the trainer. And I found that really interesting. And look, that point is, if you want to be considered the greatest of all time, you don't take medical timeouts constantly. Yes, he may have been injured, but when you're a repeat offender and you do it time after time after time and come out and then win the next 3 sets, doesn't make any sense, Novak. But he did come out and say how he felt and just reiterated that he was injured. But you do talk, Mark, about and how defensively good Djokovic is, Nadal is, and how dominant Federer and Djokovic have been. But yeah, Mark, you are right. From when Djokovic, Nadal, and Federer have played over the last 10 years, you sent me this homework yesterday. I have done it. In the last 10 years, Federer has lost at 9 slams in straight sets. Djokovic 4, but 2 retirements and a default. And Nadal 5 with 3 retirements and a walkover. So it just shows how hard they are to beat in straight sets. And Federer, obviously, and I want you to allude to this point, and also we'll get Shane in on that as well, as to why it's Federer more so than the other two that lose in straight sets. Is it because he's more attacking and more offensive?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, Federer's got some great defensive skills, absolutely. But his first and foremost game style is to be an aggressive kind of player. He's an all-court player. He wants to come forward. He wants to take time and space. He wants to take the net. So he's got the more offensive style compared to the other two, and that's generally why he'll get those results. Now, to beat Nadal and Djokovic, you got to play 5 sets. I mean, you've got to play 4 or 5 sets. They're not going to lose in straight. They're going to be long rallies, and I know, and Shane will touch on this in a minute, but I know the rallies in this tournament have been a lot longer. Hence the reason you see the guys like Djokovic and Nadal really, really hard to break down, and even Dominic Thiem for that matter. I think it's incredible what they can do over a long period of time. And the clay courts have definitely suited them this year, Shane, I think, in terms of the stats.
Yeah, absolutely. And just on your point, I think that there's a higher risk element to Roger's game, and he's able to do it so consistently and make it look simple, but sometimes it goes wrong. So some of those straight sets defeats, he's probably just not been 100%. And I dare say some of them would be on a clay court as well. I know he faced Nadal in Roland Garros last year in perhaps the windiest conditions we've ever seen on a tennis court. So I wouldn't look too much into that. And it is a testament to him that he's able to finish matches as well. I think he could have quite easily pulled out in the semi-final of the Australian Open. He wasn't right after the Sandgren match. He actually changed his game style quite significantly, and actually for the first set, really pushed Novak by being
that was robbery. That was utter robbery, that first set. I'm still upset about it.
But yeah, the stats have been interesting. So I had a look at the average duration per point, and on average, it's a second more than last year. And I was looking at Nadal, Djokovic, and Thiem. I had a vision of 3 of them being in the semi-final. Turned out, unfortunately, Thiem's knocked out, but they've been progressively, each match has gotten higher and higher in terms of the average duration per point. And Thiem's actually been averaging a second and a half more per point than the other two. So that adds up when you play over 7 rounds. So it's one of the reasons why Novak and Nadal are in the semi-finals and Thiem is not. And I think Marc, you'll probably be able to allude to, like, the actual intensity during the point is quite significant in tennis, comparable to other sports.
It is, and it's actually interesting, and you bring up a great point there, because if we look at intensity levels, you would say that the Federer and Djokovic probably waste or expend less energy on per shot than what Nadal and Dominic Thiem would. And it's really interesting to watch it too. So when we talk about over a period of time, we talk about the length of the rallies, we talk about the length of the matches. But if you look at energy expended on every single shot, Nadal would be miles above the rest of them in terms of what he puts on every single ball. He's absolutely 150% of his effort and his intensity. So, there's that. And then you've got emotional energy that gets burnt as well. So, when you're playing on emotion like Nadal does, it's a lot more expenditure than it would be for Federer. Federer is very calm and controlled. So you've got emotional energy, you've got intensity on the ball, you've got longer rallies that play a lot of a big part, I guess, in this sort of stuff as well. So, yeah, 100% correct. I've seen the rallies go a lot longer. The balls are a lot more dead, as we've touched on, Shane. The courts are a lot slower. The balls are bouncing a little bit more in the strike zone, and it's harder to hit winners. And that's where the ball has become, or the points have become a lot longer this year. So, yeah, absolutely great pickup. And I think it's a really important factor for anyone out there listening to this show to understand that, every single time you go to a tennis court around the world, it's going to be different. The conditions will be different, the environment, the balls, the opponents. So you've got to continually adapt. So as a coach, my main thing is to ensure that I'm always creating adaptive players to be able to handle these situations whenever they come to fruition.
Yep, and it's a great point you make, and I think that's what's made this tournament so interesting. How different it has been to usual Roland Garros tournaments. And Joel, we'll move on. Stefanos Tsitsipas over Andrei Rublev last night, 7-5, 6-2, 6-3. It's not the match we expected. I think after watching in Hamburg last week when Rublev really came back and took the match away from Tsitsipas, we expected it to be a pretty close one. But after a taxing fourth round match against Martin Fucsovics, it seems as though Stefanos Tsitsipas' win over Grigor Dimitrov gave him the utmost of confidence because he steamrolled the Russian.
Yeah, for sure. And when we talk about fatigue and all that kind of thing, with Dominic Thiem, with Andrei Rublev, and with Steph, he seems to be the one that's maybe dealt with it the best. I was impressed by how Steph used the net against Andrei Rublev. He approached 17 times and won 16 points out of the 17. So that's pretty good. He was pretty sharp in that area. So I think, it's interesting, and it probably ties back to the length of points. I think Steph's best chance of taking out Novak is probably to approach if he can and try and shorten those points.
Shane, is that something that a sentiment that you echo?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the other things I looked at was passing shot success this year. And on the men's side, it's down by about 14%. So players are actually able to cover it, whether it's an unforced error when someone's attempting the passing shot or the player at the net's actually able to get that second volley and win the point. It's a lot higher this year than last year. So, Stefanos's game, he's an all-court player, so he does like to come forward. So I think the clay, the balls, everything suits him this year. Novak's in for a bit of a fight, I think.
Yep. Well, it'd be very interesting to see. And like you talk about the points and how it's been harder to hit a passing shot. Marc, is that kind of what we realized at the US Open final when Alexander Zverev took Dominic Thiem's backhand away from him completely?
Yeah, it's definitely an underutilized area of the court. I mean, the data says, and I know we've got the data guru here with us today, but the data says that you're going to win more points if you're at the net and the opponent's at the baseline. I mean, it's a fact. It's not an opinion. So what needs to happen is that we've got to create these players and get these players coming forward. Why? Because you take away time, you take away space. Now, the court doesn't get bigger if you come to the net. It just stays the same size. So there's less space for the opponent to be able to hit into. If you get them on defense and you sit back, they've got the whole court space to defend into. It's important to be able to take that away from them. Tsitsipas is doing that really well at the moment. To beat Djokovic, and look, Djokovic has got the most incredible passing shots and the most incredible lobs. So I'm not going to discount the fact that that's going to hurt him too much, but it will hurt him. And, you've got to mix up against Djokovic. You can't play the same game. You can't allow him to stay on the baseline, play a lateral kind of game. He won't miss a ball for the match. Okay, that's the way he plays. He's going to wear you down. He's going to grind you down. Tsitsipas will not go with him if he stays in those rallies too long. He's going to have to take initiative early on. He's going to have to step up the court. He's going to have to be more aggressive. And like Shane said, he's going to have to take the net and be really controlled. As Joel said also in the match like today, he has to come forward and really dominate from the front of the court.
Yep, kind of like what Federer has started to try and work out to do against both Nadal and Djokovic, and really just attack them, play that offensive game. If it comes off, it comes off. If it doesn't, move on, go to the next point. If you hit an error, you hit an error. So, hopefully we can see a really interesting match because Stefanos Tsitsipas, this is the second Grand Slam semi-final for him. So I'm sure he would want to at least get a set this time because the last time Rafa absolutely destroyed him at the 2019 Australian Open. But moving on to the women's draw, and Danielle Collins, well, she got through one of our favourites on the show because of Shane on Jabeur. She got through her in the fourth round and took a set off Sofia Kenin, but I think, Marc, you said she did an ab last night, and that would be an extremely painful injury. So Kenin getting through to her second major semi-final of the year, 6-4, 4-6, 6 love, and Petra Kvitova getting through 6-3, 6-3 over Laura Siegerman. But we'll start with the Kenin and Collins match. And look, I was quite surprised. I actually thought Collins would win this match, and in straight too. Just the way that she played and her touch against Ons Jabeur was phenomenal. And you would have gotten a first-hand look at that, Shane. Tell us about what you like from Danielle Collins, and aside from the injury, what Kenin was able to do to negate her.
Yeah, I mean, she's very streaky. When she gets on a hot streak, she wins a lot of points in a row. And I think going back to the match with Ons, there was a period from, I think, 4-all in the first set to 3-love in the second, where I think there was 17 points and she won 15 of them. And I'd say there was a couple of errors from Ons, but it was Danielle Collins just controlling the point completely. So and you saw it against Muguruza, you saw it against Kenin. She can win a lot of games in a row very quickly. So that's an asset. It's probably the coin flip is she can lose a lot of games in a row quickly as well, and it's to do with her high risk sort of style. Again, I don't know how she would have gone had the ab injury not been there, but at a set all she was very much in that match. So I think she's got a great opportunity. I think she made a semi-final a couple of years ago at a Slam. Can't recall.
Yeah, Oz Open 2019.
Yeah, so it's not like she hasn't been there before, and I think just another player coming out of the college system that's doing really well.
Yeah, definitely right. And look, you mentioned off air before we came on that you had some stats on drop shots or playing extra drop shots on the women's side of the draw. So talk us through that.
Yeah, well, I mean, at this event, we've all sort of seen the amount of drop shots being played. So one of the really effective strategies is to hit a counter drop shot, so a drop shot off a drop shot. And Sofia Kenin is doing that exceptionally well. I think she's having 84% of success when she's got a counter drop shot in play. So the other two in the top three, Iga Swiatek, she's getting 80% of success, and Ons was getting 78% up, hitting a drop shot off a drop shot. And just with the ball dying, and particularly when there's a little bit of drizzle on the court as well, it's such an effective play to go back with a drop shot. Particularly, a lot of these players are playing the drop shot just on the baseline or slightly in front of it. So if you're able to hit a drop shot, get to the ball and hit another drop shot, you can catch them off guard a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. And I think Marc, Joel and I spoke about this yesterday about why the drop shot was being played in the third stroke, and especially because the clay isn't actually bouncing much this year. So I think that's assisted really well. But looking at Kenin and the matchup between Kenin and Kvitova, this is only, I think I sent you guys a stat this morning, and Joel, I think it's only the fourth time that a seed will actually take on another seed at this Roland Garros tournament, and it is Halep v Anisimova, Svitolina against Alexandrova, Sabalenka v Jabeur, and this will be the fourth time, and it's taken till the semi-finals to get that, Joel. So it probably is going to be the most exciting match of the tournament, considering how hard these two hit the ball.
Yeah, well, it's just been that kind of tournament, and you know what, Val? Even though we've got this stat, we've finally got I guess this clash between Kvitova and Kenin. I'm actually still more excited about the matchup between Iga Swiatek and Nadia Podoroska. Funnily enough, I think the real romance is in that match. So that's the one that I'm looking forward to. But I mean, it's what more can you say? It's just been a crazy tournament, and you know what? It's good for tennis. I mean, it's probably not happened in the circumstances that we would have liked, but it's good for the sport. So I'll take it.
It definitely is. And you had a really interesting stat on Iga Swiatek this morning.
Yeah, so I actually didn't realize she was playing in the doubles draw before today, but obviously she's a semi-finalist in the singles and hasn't dropped a set so far en route to the semi-finals, and she's going to hit a career high ranking of 33, but she also has not dropped a set in the doubles draw, and that's on the way to the semis as well. So she realistically could have 2 titles potentially from Roland Garros. I mean, how is that?
Genuinely unbelievable. And Marc, you're looking at this matchup between Kenin and Kvitova. It makes you salivate just to think about how hard they're going to hit the ball. But who do you think actually wins it?
Look, I mean, I think all round, I think Kvitova is the better player. If we just strip it back and just go from pure talent and ability. And I think that her ball speed should be able to keep Kenin back away from the offense. Now, if Kenin is not in offense, it's really hard for her. She's got a few holes in the technical side of the game that can be broken down quite easily if she's in defense a lot of the time. And it did happen a few matches ago where she was caught on defense and really struggled. And I feel like Kvitova is the kind of player that will push her with ball depth, with ball speed, and the ability with the left hand to be able to work the angles a little bit better. So I feel Kvitova is the better player going into it, but they're very hard to split in these conditions. Is the conditions going to be too heavy to be able to hit Kenin off the court? For Kvitova, is Kenin going to be able to stay up the court and be able to take time and space away to not allow Kvitova to be able to load up, because she has got quite large swings. So if you don't give her time, it may not play into her favor. So, it's going to be a really tough battle. I'm actually really looking forward to this match. It's going to be a cracking match. I hope Kvitova, I think it's the kind of the romance story that I'm really looking forward to. I think, her comeback from what we spoke about the other day, from the stabbing that she did have. I think it's an incredible comeback, and it's going to be a great match. But I do agree with Joel, though. I think the other side of the draw really shows us that, tennis is such an open sport, and anyone on any given day, any given tournament can make their mark and take their opportunity. And this is great for both players. I think it's a really refreshing look to tennis. I think for from a long time, I think these two players are going to show us what's capable. And Podoroska being a qualifier, absolutely outstanding. What a great effort.
Oh, amazing stories. And we'll get all three of your picks for tonight's matches in a sec. But I do want to touch on the sort of the negative on Roland Garros today, because there has been a match fixing scandal, and that was involved in the Andrea Mitsu and Patricia Maria Tiggs win, 7-6, 6-4 win over Madison Brengle and Yana Tsitsipas. So during one of these matches, there was a game that allegedly had a bet on it, which involved two double faults when Tsitsipas was serving. And I think there were a lot of coincidences there, with a lot of money being made on this certain game. And, when those are genuinely all for the same game, it's not a coincidence. It's blatant match fixing, and it's under investigation at the moment. And there could be heavy fines for the players involved if Brengle was involved as well. We don't know, but yeah, it's pretty full on. And yeah, look, Marc and Shane obviously being around tennis a lot more. You might know a lot more about this than what Joel and I do, but how is match fixing as rife as what they say it is? Because it seems as though it's quite concerning.
Yeah, I'll mention a little story, which I'm not going to mention the players, but we did get approached about probably 8 or 9 years ago to fix a match. It was incredible, and reported at the time. The player reported it that I had, but yeah, it happens a lot, and it's a lot of people you don't want to get mixed up with, and it's quite scary and quite challenging to go through something like that. But a lot of these players, and we look at a lot of these players that have done it in the past, have been desperate for money. They've been desperate for a lot of different things to survive in life, and obviously it's not the right way to go about it. And I know it's challenging for a lot of people in situations and with their backs against the wall, but it happens a lot, and it has happened a lot in the past. I know in the last few years it's definitely been stamped out a lot, and I'm so glad that it has. And it's kept the sport really clean. But there's no doubt that it does happen. There's no doubt that it does get taken further than what it should in a lot of instances, and players do get I guess a lot of backlash from different organizations. And yeah, and look, it is tough, but I hope this is a really good step in stopping things before they become too big. And there was apparently a few red flags in that there was a few countries that these bets were placed in on that one particular game, and that all alerted authorities, which is really good. And it's a great system now that they've got in place to stop this happening. And I'm just so glad I'm not at that top level at the game, because it does happen a lot, and it is, especially for players that are probably struggling for the cash. That's where it is, and you never see the top players being targeted for match fixing. It's always the lower ranked players, because betting agencies and people, like gamblers, want to go to those people to say, hey, I know you need some money. here you go. And that's where it happens a lot.
Yeah, look, I haven't had the experience. I haven't been around in tennis as long as Marc, but they're going to prey on the vulnerability of people. And Marc hit the nail on the head. It's the lower ranked players that or the juniors coming up that they're going to target because there's an opportunity that they're going to take that sort of cash windfall at that stage. But tennis is not dissimilar to other sports. This sort of betting is rife. Cricket, basketball, it's soccer, and it's usually the lower tiers. But tennis is not immune to this.
Yeah, and it is disappointing. And I remember one of the high-profile ones in Australia, anyway, with Nick Lindahl. I mean, he was one of them, and also Oliver Anderson, the 2017 Junior Australian Open champion, was involved in it as well. So it is very disappointing. But hopefully we can stamp it out of the game, because it does need to happen. And hopefully if it is match fixing, life bans, unfortunately, that's what it's got to be, because we don't need that corruption in the sport that we love. But look, tonight we do have the two women's semi-finals. Iga Swiatek against Nadia Podoroska, the battle of the wonderful narratives. First up on court, Philippe Chatrier, and then Sofia Kenin against Petra Kvitova following that. So, well, let's start with the picks. Joel, yours, and I think I know who your top side of the draw is, but I don't know who your bottom is.
Yeah, so my women's final is Swiatek versus Kvitova. I think Kvitova will get the job done against Kenin.
Yep. Shane?
Look, I think Swiatek's going to be in the final. She's, and I know, Joel, I've been watching the show. You went early with her, and I think right. I actually think Kenin's going to get over the line with Kvitova. She doesn't really fear anyone hitting through her. It's the ones that can move her a lot, and I'm not sure. I mean, last year I watched her beat I think Williams, and she pushed Barty as well at Roland Garros. So I have a feeling she'll get over the line against Kvitova.
Yep, and Marc.
Oh, if the stats man's telling me that, I'm going to have to change my mind. I think Kvitova and Swiatek, I think they'll be the two that get through. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if Kenin did get through it as well, only because Shane said so.
Nicely done. And I'm going to go with Kvitova and Swiatek as well. I want to go Podoroska for the story, and to be the second Argentinian woman to make a Grand Slam final behind Gabriela Sabatini, the wonderful Sabatini. So, yeah, I'm not sure. But, yeah, I think I'll go Kvitova and Podoroska, but it could easily be and Swiatek, and it could easily be the other way around. But that's about all we've got time for today on the Tennis Menus, a daily Roland Garros show. And remember, crunching the numbers is the latest tennis starter trends run by our great friend Shane Liyanage, only $39.90 US on thetennismenu.com. And Shane, thank you so much for being a part of the show today. It's been an absolute pleasure as always.
Thanks, guys. I want to do a quick shout out to the ASB Classic, Rewa and Mike. Unfortunately, your event's cancelled for next year, but it's a great event and it'll be back stronger in 2022.
It is a fantastic event there in Auckland. They do a wonderful job and get some big players over there as well. Joel Frucci, thank you very much. As always, it's great to talk tennis with you.
Yeah, absolutely, Val. Thanks. And thanks, Marc and Shane as well.
And Marc Safulis, the best high-performance coach in the business. It's a pleasure chatting tennis with you as always, and your insight is unparalleled.
It's definitely paralleled by many people, but thanks for your kind words, Val. Much appreciated. And yeah, it's going to be a great night of tennis. Really looking forward to waking up at 2 a.m. like I do every morning and watching a bit more. But it's been good, and looking forward to the men's semis. I think are going to be cracking. So yeah, stay tuned.
Yeah, I think so. And tomorrow we're going to be talking about the women's semis, reviewing them and previewing what's going to happen in the two men's semi-finals. So stick around and stay tuned for that.